Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed,
where we break down the world's news from every angle.
from the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Nina,
And I'm Jules.
and we'll be your hosts for today's news collection.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we plunge headfirst into the stack of articles, research, and insights you sent our way. We pull out the most important nuggets, the surprising facts.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. Our mission is always to leave you feeling well-informed, quickly and thoroughly. Today, wow, we've got a really expansive collection. Global news stretching from, cosmic wonders
All the way out.
to the complexities of international diplomacy, some cutting-edge tech, and profound societal shifts.
Indeed, and it's a packed brief, really. Our aim, as always, is to connect the dots for you, offer multiple perspectives, maybe trigger some of those aha moments that make the world's headlines, truly understandable.
Right.
We'll be looking not just at what is happening, but digging into why it matters, why it should matter to you.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're talking new scientific frontiers, the intense pressures of geopolitics,
Big stuff.
and the evolving fabric of our societies. So, prepare to journey with us. All right, let's kick things off by looking up, way, way up, into space.
Always a good place to start.
Our first stop is Mars. NASA's, that's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Curiosity rover, is still plugging away up there.
Still hard at work, yeah, sending back incredible insights.
So between Sol's 4649 and 4654, those are Martian days, right?
Martian days.
Curiosity's been meticulously looking at this really intriguing geological feature on Mount Sharp. They're calling it boxwork terrain.
It's a very good description, actually. You see these pronounced ridges and hollows that define the area. The main idea, the hypothesis, is that it's linked to a sort of two-stage process.
Okay.
First, fluids, probably ancient water, seeped through and cemented certain parts of the rock, making them harder.
Right, like concrete setting.
Kind of. And then differential erosion happened. Basically, the softer, uncemented bits wore away over billions of years.
Wind, maybe other forces.
Exactly. Wind, maybe some other atmospheric processes, leaving behind these complex, box-like patterns.
So Curiosity is literally scratching beneath the surface of Martian history,
Wow.
giving us clues about ancient water activity.
It really is. And it's not just taking pictures, though the pictures are amazing.
Right, it's got tools.
Oh, yeah, a whole suite of analytical tools. There's MAHLI, the Mars Hand Lens Imager, that gives super close-up, almost microscopic views of the rock textures.
Okay.
Then you've got ChemCam, that's a laser instrument. It zaps tiny spots on the rock,
Zaps them.
vaporizes them. Then it analyzes the light that comes off to figure out the elements inside, even from a distance.
Wow.
And there's also APXS, the alpha particle X-ray spectrometer. That gives an even more detailed chemical fingerprint using X-rays.
So combining all that data.
Exactly. You put it all together and it starts to tell a chemical story, a narrative of what happened billions of years ago.
It's fascinating how these subtle differences in the rock, the textures, can tell us so much.
That's the key takeaway, I think. These tiny textural chemical differences reveal so much about the dynamic processes that shaped Mars over eons. Even without us being there in person. The texture isn't just superficial, it's a historical record, an archive.
Of ancient water.
Potentially, yes,
Yeah.
strong evidence for it. And the team is carefully documenting all these textural changes, these transitions, because they're planning, potentially, a drilling operation.
So going deeper.
Right. If they can drill down, get a sample from below the surface, that could give an even clearer picture of Mars' geological past. And, the history of water on the red planet, which is, of course, the big question regarding
Habitability.
life. Precisely. Could Mars have ever hosted life? It's about piecing together the planet's autobiography, one rock at a time.
Okay, from digging into Mars's past, let's bring it back closer to home. A celestial spectacle you could actually see.
Something for the stargazers.
Yeah. On September 13th, Mars had this really cool alignment. It appeared super close to the bright blue star Spica in the evening sky.
A beautiful sight, if you caught it.
And if you missed it, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, this is just one of several exciting things happening up there this autumn.
Yeah, autumn's a great season for sky watching. Besides that Mars-Spica alignment, we're expecting brighter supermoons.
Those are the ones that look bigger, right?
Exactly. They appear larger and more luminous because their orbit brings them a bit closer to Earth.
Cool.
Plus, we've got the annual meteor showers, the Orionids, the Leonids. They can put on breathtaking displays. shooting stars everywhere.
Nice.
And certain planets will be more visible too, so yeah, lots of chances to see our cosmic neighbors.
It's really an invitation, isn't it, for all of us to just step outside, look up, connect to the universe.
Absolutely. It fosters that sense of curiosity, maybe a bit of perspective too.
Speaking of cosmic connections, and maybe a bit less perspective, a bit more mind-bending, black holes.
Ah, the ultimate cosmic mystery.
Scientists have apparently made a groundbreaking observation about how they form. They've actually quantified something called momentum transfer events.
Right, this is huge. It's moving black hole formation from purely theoretical models into the realm of, well, measurable physics.
So what does momentum transfer mean in this context? Like a cosmic punch?
Kind of. Imagine the immense forces and energy exchanges like a cosmic recoil, almost, that happen when a massive star collapses into a black hole.
Okay.
Or when two black holes merge. They're now managing to measure the momentum involved in those events.
And that tells us.
It tells us the process is far more violent and dynamic than we might have previously imagined. Think about it, quantifying this means we can start to understand how a black hole's trajectory might be affected.
So a newly formed black hole could get kicked, essentially, sent flying through its galaxy.
Potentially, yes, or its spin could be dramatically altered. This affects how it interacts with its surroundings, how galaxies evolve.
Wow.
It really deepens our understanding of galactic evolution and the universe itself. We're moving from speculation to actual quantifiable observation of these cosmic behemoths.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit from the depths of space to something a little closer, but still very high-tech. Drones.
Right, and an interesting partnership here.
Yeah, NASA is collaborating with the Department of Defense to enhance drone technologies.
The main goal here is improving long-distance cargo transport and also aerospace testing capabilities. This is happening within NASA Glenn's facilities and labs. A company called Troy Sierra is managing key parts, engineering, manufacturing, certification.
So basically, making drones better for NASA's own work, like carrying supplies or testing equipment.
Exactly. Optimizing efficiency, expanding the range, the capacity of drone operations, not just for Earth, potentially for future Moon or Mars missions, too.
Does this mean our future space deliveries might come with a strategic aerial defense system? Just kidding.
Yes. Maybe not defense systems, but leveraging military expertise in robust autonomous systems makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for safety and reliability over huge distances. That's critical for space stuff.
Absolutely. And think about the potential spillover effects.
Like what?
Well, breakthroughs in autonomous navigation, making drones tougher for extreme environments, better power management, that kind of tech could be huge for disaster response back here on Earth, environmental monitoring, maybe even those flying taxis people talk about. Urban air mobility.
Ah, okay. So it's a cross-pollination of expertise. Military tech helping science, which might then help civilians.
Precisely. Benefits multiple sectors.
All right, pulling back to Earth for a bit, but keeping that futuristic vibe. Transformative technologies. Stuff that could change how we interact with animals or even, well, human existence itself.
Big claims.
Starting with the animal internet. What is that?
This is some really fascinating research out of Glasgow University in the UK, led by Elena Hersky-Douglas. They're pioneering ways for pets and other animals to actually communicate using digital devices.
Wait, communicate with us? Or each other?
Both, potentially. The goal is to move beyond us just observing them to letting animals actively engage, express their needs, maybe even desires.
Imagine your dog sending you a text. Walkies now.
Or scheduling a virtual playdate for your parrot. They've actually done things like this.
Really?
Yeah, they developed a phone for a dog named Zach to video call his owner.
Get out of here.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And a playdating system for parrots using touchscreens to interact with other parrots remotely.
That's incredible. So what's the core idea here? Is it just making pets happier or is it deeper?
It's definitely deeper. This isn't just about, cute tech tricks. It's about fundamentally changing our understanding and connection with other species.
How so?
Well, think about it. It aligns with other efforts, like Baidu in China patenting AI to potentially translate animal sounds. If we could actually understand their communications better, deepen that emotional connection, imagine the implications for animal welfare, for conservation, for our whole relationship with the natural world.
Moving from interpreting barks to maybe understanding actual thoughts or feelings?
That's the potential, yes.
Yeah.
Bridging that communication gap.
Okay, from talking animals to something potentially even more profound, ethically complex maybe? Xenotransplantation.
Right. Using animal organs for human transplants.
This sounds like pure sci-fi, but you're saying it's becoming real.
It is. Progress has been accelerating. The focus now is intensely on genetically engineered animal organs, especially from pigs.
Pigs? Why pigs?
Their organs are physiologically quite similar in size and function to human organs, and genetic engineering helps overcome the massive immune rejection issues.
Okay. And the goal is to address the organ shortage.
Exactly. The shortage of human organs for transplants is a massive global health crisis. Thousands die waiting. Xenotransplantation offers a potential path not just to extend life, but maybe significantly improve the quality of life for people with organ failure. It could be a medical revolution.
Wow. So the upside is huge, solving a major humanitarian problem. But the ick factor, maybe, the ethical side.
That's the crucial discussion we need to have. It raises a really important question. As we get closer to blurring the lines between species this way, what are the profound societal and ethical conversations we need?
What kind of conversations?
Well, technically, scientists are working hard on the immunology, preventing rejection, developing better anti-rejection drugs that don't wipe out the whole immune system. But ethically, animal welfare is a big one. Is it right to raise animals specifically as organ sources? What are the risks of cross-species disease transmission? And maybe more philosophically, what does it mean to be human if parts of our bodies are non-human?
Yeah, deep questions.
Absolutely. It demands not just scientific progress, but really deep ethical reflection as a society.
Okay, from organs to algorithms, let's talk about Albania. They've done something pretty radical in their government.
Really radical. The Prime Minister, Edi Rama, has appointed an AI bot as the country's first AI-generated minister.
A minister, like in the cabinet.
Effectively, yes. The bot's name is Diela, which means sun, and its job is specifically to fight corruption in public tenders.
An AI anti-corruption minister.
That's the idea. Corruption, especially in government contracts, is a huge problem in Albania, a major roadblock to their goal of joining the European Union.
So Diela is meant to be an incorruptible digital watchdog.
Precisely. Using AI's analytical power to spot anomalies, suspicious patterns, ensure tenders are clean.
Has this AI done anything before?
Yes, Diela wasn't built from scratch for this. It previously worked as a virtual assistant on the e-Albania public service platform, apparently issued over 36,000 digital documents already.
Okay, so it has some track record in digital admin, but a minister, that's a leap.
A huge leap, and it raises fascinating questions about AI and governance.
Like what? Is it even constitutional?
That's exactly what critics are asking. The leader of the main opposition group, Guzman Bardi, questioned its constitutionality and, maybe more importantly, its effectiveness.
Can an algorithm really fight deep-rooted human corruption?
That's the core tension, isn't it? Leveraging tech for transparency versus the very human nature of corruption, of political culture, favors and networks. Can code really address systemic issues like that? Or is it more symbolic, a way to signal commitment to reform? And what about oversight? Who watches the AI watchdog?
Yeah, could it be manipulated?
These are the critical questions. It forces us to think about the limits of technology when facing fundamentally human problems.
Okay, one last stop in this science and tech section. Something seemingly simple but maybe profound. True darkness.
Ah, yes, something increasingly rare in our world.
New research suggests embracing complete darkness has real benefits for mental health, cognitive function.
That's right. We live under constant artificial light, street lights, screens, indoor lighting. True darkness, the complete absence of light, is hard to find. And these studies propose that experiencing it can actually help reset our internal mental states.
Reset how? Leading to?
Improved emotional well-being, maybe sharper brain function, deeper introspection.
So it's more than just helping sleep.
Much more. The evidence comes partly from things like dark retreat practices. People report increased mindfulness, clearer thinking afterwards. And physiologically, it boosts melatonin, which, yes, helps sleep, but also affects mood and brain health generally.
So the takeaway for us, living in our bright world.
The core insight, I think, is that darkness facilitates a unique kind of mental reset. In our constantly stimulated lives, intentionally seeking out periods of genuine darkness, even short ones, could be a powerful, if counterintuitive, strategy for mental wellness.
Letting the brain kind of decompress and reorganize without constant input.
Exactly. A reminder that sometimes the simplest, most natural things have profound effects.
Okay, let's shift focus now. From the frontiers of science to the, well, often harsh realities of geopolitics. A lot to cover here.
Indeed, a very complex global picture right now.
Starting with the ongoing situation in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis there seems just overwhelming.
It is immense and deeply, deeply concerning. Reports suggest over 1.3 million Palestinians are still in northern Gaza. This is amidst what's described as a systematic campaign of forced evacuations. It leaves people incredibly vulnerable, homeless.
And the conditions in the south.
Dire. Makeshift camps, like in the Al-Mawasi area, are overflowing. They lack basic necessities: clean water, food, sanitation, shelter. People are expressing just profound despair. UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, reported recently that about 70,000 people had just moved south, adding to the immense strain.
And the conflict itself continues to hit civilian infrastructure. We heard about schools.
Unfortunately, yes. There have been reports of Israeli military actions impacting schools run by UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees.
Those schools are often used as shelters too, aren't they?
They are. So bombing them not only disrupts education, but destroys vital shelter for displaced families, making the crisis even worse.
It's hard to grasp the scale.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer scale of human suffering, 1.3 million displaced, civilian sites like UNRWA schools hit. It just highlights the urgent need for adherence to international humanitarian law.
Protecting civilians, aid workers.
Exactly. These laws exist precisely to prevent or mitigate this kind of suffering in conflict zones. These aren't just numbers, they're lives.
Has the international community responded, diplomatically at least?
There's been action at the UN. The United Nations General Assembly endorsed a resolution pushing for a two-state solution. Importantly, it explicitly excluded Hamas from governing Gaza in any future arrangement.
How did that vote go?
Overwhelmingly in favor, 142 votes for, but 10 voted against, including the US and Israel, and 12 abstained. So broad support, but key players remain opposed.
What was Israel's reaction?
Their UN ambassador, Danny Danon, basically called it a hollow gesture, said it wouldn't help achieve peace. Meanwhile, you hear growing international calls for more scrutiny, more accountability regarding Israeli military actions, emphasizing that need for a legal framework based on international law.
So, a real disconnect there.
A significant one. It shows how hard it is to find a viable path forward when resolutions pass but don't have the buy-in of the main parties involved.
And adding another layer of complexity, some very high-stakes diplomacy involving Qatar, the U.S., and Israel.
Yes, this was quite dramatic. Qatar's Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani, had emergency talks in New York. He met with U.S. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
What prompted these urgent talks?
A major incident. An Israeli airstrike in Doha, the capital of Qatar.
In Qatar. That's bold.
Extremely. It apparently targeted a meeting of Hamas officials. Reports say there were multiple casualties, including a Qatari security official.
How did the U.S. react to that? An airstrike in a key partner country.
President Trump publicly expressed his displeasure. He indicated it seriously complicates U.S. efforts in peace negotiations. You can imagine.
So Israel attempted to assassinate Hamas leaders in Qatar.
That seems to be the case. Reports suggest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the strike, aiming for what he called total victory.
Did it work? Did they get the Hamas leaders?
Well, Hamas claims its leaders survived. So if that's true, Netanyahu's move backfired, didn't achieve its goal, and has likely escalated tensions significantly, both militarily and diplomatically.
And the overall conflict.
One expert quoted predicted the Gaza war is likely to go on for another 6 months, which just intensifies calls for international action.
This really raises a crucial question, doesn't it?
It does. How do these direct military actions, these high-stakes gambles, especially when they seem to backfire, impact the already incredibly fragile path towards any kind of sustainable ceasefire or resolution?
Yeah.
The core insight seems to be that such unilateral, aggressive moves can seriously undermine the very diplomatic channels you need to de-escalate. It shows how tangled military strategy and international relations really are.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to the war in Ukraine. Still a major global concern. We're seeing reinforcements on NATO's eastern flank.
We are. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, launched something called Operation Eastern Sentry.
Why now? What triggered that?
It was a direct response to recent violations of Polish airspace by Russian drones.
Drones crossing into Poland.
Yes. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte condemned it very strongly, called it dangerous and unacceptable.
So NATO's drawing a line. No incursions into member territory.
Pretty clearly, they're making it clear they're not messing around. Denmark, France, Germany all announced they're sending fighter jets to Poland.
For enhanced surveillance, protection.
Both. Beefing up the air policing along that eastern edge. And Poland's even taken it to the UN Security Council. They requested a meeting.
That signals a very unified, strong response from the alliance.
Definitely a message being sent.
Beyond the military moves, there's still huge concern about the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant in Ukraine, right?
Absolutely. It remains a massive point of contention, a huge safety risk. It's operated by Russian personnel now, but monitored by observers from the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency.
And Russia's position.
Well, one Russian official, Ulyanov, was quoted calling for the IAEA to hold Ukraine accountable for actions around the plant, basically blaming Ukraine for risks.
But the IAEA has to remain neutral, doesn't it? It's a UN agency.
Exactly, and that's the tightrope they walk. The IAEA doesn't recognize Russia's annexation of the region back in 2022, so their position is politically neutral, but operationally very complex.
What does the IAEA Director General say?
Rafael Mariano Grossi has highlighted the precarious conditions, the threats faced by both Russian and Ukrainian workers at nuclear facilities in the conflict zone. He's urging a balanced assessment.
It's just fascinating and terrifying thinking about nuclear safety inside an active war zone.
It really is. The IAEA has this incredibly difficult job. Ensure safety, prevent a catastrophe, but without getting drawn into the politics of who controls the territory. Protecting a civilian asset amidst military operations.
A real balancing act.
A critical one. It shows how these international bodies have to navigate incredibly complex, politically charged environments while sticking to their technical mandates.
Let's switch to the economic side of the conflict. Energy geopolitics. The U.S. seems to be making a big play to replace Russian gas in Europe.
A very big play. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright explicitly announced Washington's goal: eliminate Europe's reliance on Russian natural gas. That reliance was nearly 50%.
And the plan is?
Simple, really. Replace Russian supplies with American exports, liquefied natural gas primarily. They're leveraging the sanctions already in place against Russia, and, well, the situation with the Nord Stream pipeline certainly helped create the vacuum.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just about fuel switching, is it?
Not at all. It's a massive geopolitical realignment. The aim is to cut off a key economic lifeline for Russia, obviously, but it also fundamentally reshapes Europe's energy security. Creates new dependencies, yes, but also potentially new vulnerabilities, while opening doors for other suppliers, too.
It underscores how energy policy is foreign policy.
Inherently.
A powerful tool for influence.
And on the financial front, another big move being pushed by the U.S., seizing frozen Russian assets. Yes, this is a significant escalation in thinking. The U.S. is urging its G7 allies, that's the group of 7 large advanced economies, to develop a legal way to just confiscate frozen Russian state assets.
We're talking about billions here, right?
Around $300 billion worth, currently held largely by a financial institution called Euroclear, based in Brussels, Belgium.
And this is different from what was discussed before, using just the interest.
Exactly. The previous idea was just to use the interest earned on those frozen assets to help fund Ukraine. Now the push is for outright confiscation of the principal amount.
That sounds legally complicated and risky.
Very. It raises a really important question about international law and financial stability. The intention is clear: help Ukraine, punish Russia, but the method, some European leaders are very worried.
Worried about what specifically?
That direct confiscation could breach international law, that it could spook investors globally if state assets aren't safe, where is, that it could destabilize financial markets by setting a dangerous precedent.
What does Russia say?
Predictably, they've condemned it as robbery, a violation of international law, and they're threatening repercussions.
So it's a balancing act again. Justice for Ukraine versus potential global financial chaos.
It's a delicate one. The moral drive to help is strong, but the potential unintended consequences for the global financial system, for the rule of international law, those are huge risks nations have to weigh.
Still focusing on the war's impact, let's look at Poland. They've changed their approach to supporting Ukrainian refugees.
Yes, the Polish parliament passed a new bill. It extends the legal stay for Ukrainians until March 2026, which is positive. But it now ties access to family benefits, things like the monthly 800-plus child allowance, to employment and school enrollment for kids.
So refugees need to be working to get support.
Essentially, yes. Applicants need to earn at least half the minimum wage, and this will be checked monthly. If they don't work, benefits get suspended. The government says it's about targeting illicit work, increasing tax revenue, integrating people into the formal economy. It affects over 1 million Ukrainians in Poland.
This raises an important question, though, doesn't it? About balancing support with integration pressure.
It absolutely does. Some argue it's necessary for economic integration, reducing the strain on Poland's social services. Makes sense from one perspective. But others contend it could create real hardship for refugees who can't easily work, maybe due to trauma from the war, disabilities, needing to care for children, or elderly family members.
Right.
It's that classic, difficult balance between managing national resources and providing humanitarian aid, especially for a population that's already vulnerable.
Okay, let's zoom out from the immediate conflict zones and look at the broader dynamics between the U.S. and China. Trade, tech, tariffs, it's all in the mix.
Always a complex relationship, and agriculture seems to be a key, if sometimes overlooked, part of it.
How so?
Well, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, is sending a delegation of American farmers and exporters to China in November. They'll talk with Chinese officials, participate in a big import expo in Shanghai. This is the 3rd year they've done this trip.
Why is this significant now?
It's happening amidst ongoing trade tensions. And notably, U.S. farm exports to China actually dropped significantly, 43% year-on-year in May. That's a big hit.
So when the high-level talks get frosty, send in the farmers to smooth things over.
Kind of. It's a real-world example of boots-on-the-ground trade relations. The core insight is that these agricultural links can serve as vital channels. They help stabilize relations, try to revive trade, build some trust, even when political friction is high elsewhere.
Agriculture is maybe seen as less politically sensitive.
Often, yes. It offers a foundation of mutual economic benefit that can potentially help de-escalate tensions in other more contentious areas like tech. It's pragmatic.
Speaking of tech,
Yeah.
that's where the friction seems really intense. China's launched new probes against U.S. chip imports.
Yes, an anti-dumping probe into imported American analog integrated circuits, plus an investigation into alleged anti-discrimination practices by the U.S. regarding Chinese semiconductor imports.
And the timing,
Yeah.
just before trade talks.
Exactly. These actions were announced literally one day before scheduled trade talks in Madrid, Spain.
That seems pointed.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how these economic tools are deployed as strategic leverage. The timing is rarely accidental. It reflects that deeper geopolitical competition, especially in critical sectors like semiconductors. It's way beyond just trade balances.
The core insight being that economic policy, especially around key technologies, is now a primary weapon in the geopolitical arsenal.
Absolutely. A deliberate tool in the power struggle.
And related to that, the U.S. House passed a measure cutting federal funding for researchers collaborating with certain Chinese entities.
If those entities are deemed to pose security threats. It really highlights that growing divide, the increasing suspicion in U.S.-China educational and scientific ties. National security concerns are directly impacting academic freedom and international collaboration now.
And then we have President Donald Trump wading in, linking Russian sanctions to NATO buying habits and threatening tariffs on China.
Yes, quite a maneuver. He urged NATO allies to stop buying Russian oil and then threatened huge tariffs, 50 to 100% on Chinese imports if NATO doesn't comply. His claim is that China enables Russia's aggression.
How does China respond to that?
They warn against unilateral actions. They reiterate their official neutrality on Ukraine, push for peace talks, deny sending lethal aid to Russia. Their embassy also condemned recent UK sanctions on Chinese firms as unlawful.
This raises a big question, doesn't it? Is this a clever strategic move by Trump to force global alignment?
Yeah.
Or a high-risk gamble?
It's definitely high risk. It could seriously disrupt global supply chains. It could fracture alliances by forcing countries into really tough economic choices under duress.
Choose between the U.S. market and energy needs, essentially.
Or face massive economic pain. The core insight is that using economic leverage this aggressively, this broadly, carries substantial risks. It could destabilize international trade and alliances, forcing difficult choices with potentially long-lasting consequences.
Okay, let's round out this geopolitics section with a few other key flashpoints. First, some surprising U.S. diplomatic engagement in Afghanistan.
Yes, U.S. officials actually met with Taliban representatives in Kabul, Afghanistan. This included the special envoy for hostage response, Adam Bowler, and Zalmay Khalilzad, who used to be the special envoy for Afghanistan reconciliation.
Where were they discussing?
primarily American citizens being detained in Afghanistan. Reports say both sides agreed to a prisoner exchange, though the U.S. hasn't provided specifics.
Is there a particular high-profile detainee?
Yes, Mahmoud Habibi. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen, a businessman, disappeared back in 2022. The U.S. has a $5 million reward out for info on him. The Taliban denies holding him, but they are pushing for the release of someone named Mohammed Rahim from U.S. custody.
This is significant engagement, considering the U.S. doesn't formally recognize the Taliban government.
It really is. It shows ongoing, complex negotiations happening behind the scenes. The core insight. Pragmatism often overrides formal recognition when vital national interests, like the safety of your citizens, are on the line. It's real politic in action.
Now, for a very visual example of a border dispute,
Right.
a village called Kirans between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
A stark illustration. The village is now literally cut in half by a new 100-meter concrete wall built this year.
Cut in half. How does that affect people?
Devastatingly, farmers can't get to their fields or livestock on the other side. It's causing huge economic hardship and just a profound sense of lost territory, lost identity.
Has it stopped the fighting at least?
Apparently, yes. Reports say no shots have been fired since the wall went up, so there's a kind of temporary imposed peace. But it fuels huge political tension inside Armenia. There are protests against the government for agreeing to hand over that territory to Azerbaijan.
It just powerfully shows how these big international deals
Have immediate, tangible, often devastating impacts on ordinary people's lives and livelihoods. Abstract border lines become concrete walls dividing communities.
All right, let's shift our focus inward now. Societal impacts, domestic challenges, things shaping lives day to day, starting with something hitting everyone's wallet. Healthcare costs.
Yes, unfortunately, health insurance premiums look set to spike significantly.
Why? What's driving it?
Primarily, the rising cost of prescription drugs. Potential tariff threats are also mentioned as a contributing factor.
How bad could it get?
Employers are reportedly bracing for the largest increase in health benefit costs in 15 years. And you know who ultimately pays for that?
Us, the workers.
Exactly. Patients face rising healthcare inflation, and reports suggest it's largely driven by insurers and drug companies.
So what does this really mean for people, beyond just it costs more?
Well, the core insight is the profound effect on financial well-being and access to care. This isn't abstract economics, it's real pressure on household budgets. It could force people to choose lesser coverage, delay needed treatments, skip medications. It highlights those ongoing systemic pressures in the U.S. healthcare market where costs just keep climbing faster than wages.
Adding another layer to public health discussions. There's some controversy around COVID-19 vaccines in children.
Yes, reports emerged that officials associated with President Donald Trump are planning to allege a link between the COVID-19 vaccines and child deaths.
How many deaths are they claiming?
The specific claim mentioned is 25 child fatalities associated with the vaccine.
How are scientists reacting to this?
With alarm. Many career scientists quoted view such claims as potentially misleading and alarmist. They warn it could seriously undermine public trust in vaccines generally.
Vaccines that are critical for public health.
Precisely. We saw pharmaceutical stocks, Pfizer and Moderna, dip after the announcement. And apparently, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, plans to present some controversial findings at an upcoming CDC meeting Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
This raises a really important question, doesn't it? In this age of information, misinformation, political spin.
Absolutely. How do we, as the public, critically evaluate scientific claims, especially ones with such huge public health implications and ones that become politicized?
Right.
The core insight here is how vital independent scientific institutions are for maintaining public trust. Politically charged claims, especially if not strongly evidence-based, can deeply erode that trust, with potentially devastating consequences for public health outcomes.
Okay, shifting from vaccine controversy to a different kind of health threat making inroads in the U.S. Chagas disease.
Ah, yes, the kissing bug disease.
It's spreading here. I thought that was mainly a Latin American issue.
Historically, yes. It mainly affected poor, rural communities there. But it's increasingly being identified in North America, including the U.S. and even Europe. Cases have been reported in at least 8 U.S. states now, leading health authorities to call it potentially endemic here.
Wow. What causes it again? What are the symptoms?
It's caused by a parasite, Trypanosoma cruzi, transmitted by the bite of the triatomine bug, the kissing bug, because it often bites near the mouth. Symptoms can be mild at first, maybe just fever or swelling, often unnoticed, but the real danger is the chronic phase, which can develop years later.
Leading to?
Severe complications like heart problems, myocarditis, heart failure. Globally, about 7 million people are infected, and around 10,000 die each year.
How do we prevent it?
Avoiding bug bites is key. Using screens, sealing homes, and rigorous screening of blood donations is crucial, as it can be transmitted that way too.
So the broader significance here.
The core insight is this is a prime example of how diseases once considered tropical or confined to specific regions are now becoming persistent health concerns elsewhere.
Driven by
Climate change, which affects insect ranges, increased global travel and migration, changing land use patterns. It really highlights the interconnectedness of global health. A problem over there can quickly become a problem over here.
Okay, let's turn our attention across the Atlantic to the United Kingdom. Some significant issues around governance and accountability there, starting with Peter Mandelson.
Yes, a major political figure. He was dismissed from his role as the UK's ambassador, reports don't specify, to whereby number 10, the Prime Minister's office.
Why was he dismissed?
Following new revelations about his past connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
That name continues to cast a long shadow.
Indeed. The dismissal sparked significant political backlash. A Labour MP expressed a lack of confidence in the Prime Minister's handling of these kinds of controversies. It's reignited questions about the vetting processes for high-profile government appointments.
And there were questions about transparency, too. Who knew what when?
Exactly. Reports suggested some government officials knew about newly surfaced emails involving Mandelson and Epstein before the Prime Minister defended Mandelson in Parliament. That perceived delay or lack of full disclosure fueled the criticism.
What's the core insight here about public trust?
It's fascinating how past associations, even distant ones, can suddenly impact present political credibility. The core insight is the critical importance of transparency and really robust vetting for anyone in a position demanding immense public confidence. Any perceived lapse erodes that trust very quickly.
Sticking with the UK, London's Metropolitan Police Force is also under scrutiny.
Yes, 9 officers have been suspended after a BBC investigation uncovered some very serious allegations.
What kind of allegations?
Things like excessive use of force, but also discriminatory and misogynistic comments made both on duty and off.
That raises huge concerns about the culture within the force.
Absolutely. Behavior, culture, accountability, all questioned within one of the UK's largest police forces. The Met Police says they're taking it seriously, conducting a thorough internal investigation. But public calls for transparency and real systemic change are growing louder.
This reflects broader issues we see elsewhere too, right?
Definitely. Issues of discrimination, treatment of vulnerable groups, the ongoing need for police reform to rebuild trust with the communities they serve. It's a global challenge.
A different kind of troubling incident in the UK: arson at an MP's office.
Yes, a 28-year-old man, Joshua Oliver, admitted to setting fire to the office building of Labour MP Mike Amesbury.
What was the context there? Any known motive?
Reports suggest Oliver was homeless, living in a tent near the building, and struggling with personal issues. It brings up themes of homelessness, mental health struggles. The act itself draws attention to political dissent, public disorder, the vulnerability of political figures and their offices.
It raises a difficult question, doesn't it?
It does. How does society understand and respond to acts like this, which seem born out of deep personal and social struggles, rather than just, say, political ideology? What's our responsibility to address root causes like homelessness and lack of mental health support?
The core insight being that sometimes these destructive acts are symptoms of deeper societal failings.
Exactly. Challenging us to look beyond the crime itself.
Okay, let's dive into some deeply polarizing issues back in the United States. Internal divides, political violence, free speech concerns, starting with some controversial rhetoric.
Yes, Kash Patel, who was an official in the Trump administration, got a lot of attention for a social media message he sent to conservative commentator Charlie Kirk.
What did he say?
He used the phrase, "see you in Valhalla."
Valhalla, like the Viking afterlife for warriors.
Exactly. Rooted in Norse mythology. Critics immediately jumped on it, arguing it promotes a dangerous and violent mindset, potentially inciting violence in the current highly charged political climate, suggesting a confrontation.
How did Patel's supporters see it?
Presumably more as a metaphorical rallying cry, a sign of being in the fight together. But that's the fascinating thing here, isn't it? How metaphorical language, especially from influential figures, gets interpreted so drastically differently across the political divide.
A rallying cry to one side, incitement to violence to the other.
Precisely. The core insight is the critical need for careful communication in today's political landscape. Words carry immense weight, and interpretations can be dangerously divergent.
And tragically, this rhetoric took on a much darker context with the actual assassination of Charlie Kirk himself.
A shocking event. The conservative activist was murdered at an event in Utah.
Who was arrested?
A 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson. He was arrested later in Chicago and charged with aggravated murder and firearm discharge.
Any known motive? It seems so sudden.
Authorities are investigating. Reports mentioned he had a previously squeaky clean reputation, but had recently acquired political interests. It's a startling pivot, really underscores how quickly things can escalate in this environment.
The aftermath must have been intense.
Extremely. Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, gave a very emotional tribute at a huge memorial service in Arizona. Over 60,000 attended. She vowed to continue his fight against evildoers, framing his legacy in very combative terms.
This incident sparked huge debates, I imagine.
Widespread discussions, political violence, obviously, gun control, youth violence and radicalization, policing. The role of media conservative commentators highlighted what they saw as biased coverage. It raises that crucial question about the lines between political speech, activism, and outright violence in such a polarized nation.
The widow framing her grief immediately as continuing his political fight.
Right. The core insight is how deeply integrated these elements, politics, personal tragedy, calls to action, have become. The personal is political, and the political is deeply, sometimes tragically, personal.
Let's shift to academia, concerns about academic freedom and anti-Semitism at UC Berkeley.
Yes, a contentious situation. The University of California, Berkeley disclosed the names of 160 faculty and students to the Trump administration. It was part of an investigation by the U.S. Department of Education into alleged incidents of anti-Semitism on college campuses. This followed complaints made during pro-Palestinian protests.
How did the academics react to their names being handed over?
With dismay. Some, including the well-known feminist philosopher Judith Butler, who was one of those named, compared it to McCarthy-era tactics. The main criticism is that it risks conflating legitimate criticism of Israeli government actions with anti-Semitism itself.
Threatening academic freedom and free speech?
That's the core concern. Especially when political discourse around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict gets so heated. There are also broader concerns about rising anti-Arab bias and Islamophobia in the same context.
So the core insight is that tension.
Exactly. The tension between addressing genuine, serious concerns about anti-Semitism on campus and protecting the fundamental principles of academic freedom and open debate in a democratic society. Where is that line drawn, especially when politics gets involved?
And one more from the U.S. political scene. President Donald Trump pledging an investigation into billionaire investor George Soros.
Yes. President Trump announced his administration would investigate Soros, alleging he funded mass riots across the U.S.
Specifically related to?
He claimed Soros employed professional agitators to incite unrest, particularly during protests related to immigration. Trump had previously accused Soros and his son of supporting violent protests.
On what legal grounds would they investigate?
Trump suggested it might involve violations of RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
RICO, isn't that usually used against organized crime, like the mafia?
Typically, yes. Applying it to political funding and protest organization is a significant and highly controversial legal move.
This raises a big question about the weaponization of legal tools, doesn't it?
It certainly intensifies the debate around the influence of money in politics, for sure, but also about the legal boundaries of dissent and protest. The core insight is that framing political funding as potential racketeering under IFO is a major escalation. It could fundamentally change how political activism and financial contributions are viewed and potentially prosecuted, dragging political disputes deep into the legal system.
Okay, let's broaden our view again. Migration, labor, human rights. Starting with some controversial deals involving the U.S. and African nations regarding deportees.
This is a deeply troubling story. Reports indicate several African countries, Rwanda, Eswatini, Uganda, Ghana, are named or making secretive deals with the U.S.
Deals to do what?
To accept deportees from the United States in exchange for financial incentives.
So the U.S. pays these countries to take people the U.S. is deporting.
That appears to be the arrangement. It's happening under the Trump administration, which has also significantly cut other forms of aid to African countries.
Are there specifics on the money involved?
Some details have emerged. Rwanda reportedly got $100,000 for taking just one deportee and agreed to accept more. Eswatini was apparently offered over $10 million for taking a larger group. And the deals might include other perks, like favorable trade terms.
How is this being viewed?
Critically, one outlet, News Americas Now, drew parallels to historical complicity in the slave trade, arguing it treats human lives as bargaining chips for political and economic gain.
That strong comparison. It raises a huge ethical question, right?
Absolutely. While some might try to frame these as pragmatic diplomatic solutions for the U.S., maybe economic opportunities for the African nations, the profound moral and human rights implications are undeniable.
Where's the ethical line when vulnerable people become commodities in international deals?
That's the core insight, or rather, the core question. These deals expose the complex, often uncomfortable intersection of migration policy, foreign aid, and basic human rights. It forces us to ask about the ethics of leveraging human beings for geopolitical gain and raises serious concerns about the fate of these deportees, potentially sent to unstable countries facing harsh conditions or indefinite detention.
Shifting to Nepal now, which seems to be going through a major political upheaval.
Yes, a significant transition. Sushila Karki has been appointed as the interim prime minister.
Why interim? What happened?
It follows a period of intense, sometimes violent protests, largely led by Gen Z youth.
Protesting what?
Frustration over government corruption, nepotism, lack of economic opportunities for young people. The protests actually led to the dissolution of parliament and the resignation of the previous prime minister. Sadly, reports indicate at least 51 deaths during the unrest, mostly centered in Kathmandu.
How are neighboring countries reacting?
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Karki, emphasizing India's support for stability in Nepal. He also highlighted her appointment as positive for women's empowerment. China called for calm.
What's next for Nepal?
They've announced elections for March, hoping to stabilize the situation and form a new government. The core insight here is really twofold. One, how powerful youth activism can be as a catalyst for major political change. And two, the ongoing difficult challenges of nation building, especially when dealing with corruption and economic pressures.
Moving to Europe, France is facing its own political and economic turmoil.
Yes, the Prime Minister, François Bayrou, resigned recently.
Wow.
He lost a parliamentary confidence vote. The trigger was a controversial proposed budget that aimed for over 40 billion euros in savings austerity measures, essentially.
So that leaves President Macron in a tough spot.
A very tough spot, a political stalemate. Left-wing lawmakers are demanding concessions in exchange for supporting any future budget or government.
What kind of concessions?
Primarily a new wealth tax on the super rich, dubbed the Zucman tax after the economist Gabriel Zucman who proposed it. It's aimed at tackling income inequality, generating revenue, but it sparks fierce debate about social justice versus economic growth.
So a new prime minister had to be appointed?
Yes, Sébastien Lecornu. And he's already making headlines, but maybe not for his policies yet.
For what?
His unconventional greeting. Apparently he greets male colleagues with temple-to-temple bumps.
Headbutts. Seriously.
Well, maybe gentle ones. He reportedly learned it from a Benedictine monastic community. It's certainly different.
Maybe it's his way of saying, we're tackling this budget head on. But beyond the quirky greetings, what's the bigger picture in France?
The core insight is that France's turbulence, the budget fight, the wealth tax demand, the fragile alliances mirrors challenges across Europe. That struggle to balance fiscal discipline with social fairness, the rise of populist economic demands, the fragmentation of traditional politics. It's a microcosm of the pressures on established democracies right now.
Let's look now at the economic impact of U.S. sanctions on the Xinjiang region in China.
Right. These sanctions have been in place since 2019, started under President Trump, expanded under President Biden. They target Chinese companies linked to alleged human rights abuses against the Uyghur population. Over 144 companies are on the U.S. entity list, facing restrictions.
What has the actual economic effect been, according to studies?
Research by Chinese scholars indicates significant negative impacts, job losses, long-term economic damage. They found big drops in company revenues, fewer employees enrolled in social insurance. Some firms saw profits fall by over 30%. These scholars argue the sanctions unintentionally create forced unemployment and are primarily politically motivated rather than effective human rights tools.
So the U.S. aims to address human rights abuses.
But the Chinese counterargument is that the sanctions actually harm the economic well-being of the very people they claim to help. It's a classic case of intended versus actual consequences.
Is the Xinjiang economy collapsing then?
Interestingly, no. Despite the sanctions, the region's economy reportedly rebounded, growing 6.8% in 2023. They're investing in new sectors, new energy, tourism, modern agriculture. Local governments are prioritizing job creation for ethnic minorities. The core insight remains that clash. The U.S. goal of leveraging economic pressure for human rights versus the argument that it causes unintended harm and forced unemployment. It highlights the complex, often disputed outcomes of international sanctions.
Moving to Southeast Asia, the Philippines. There's a major corruption scandal testing the military's loyalty to the president.
Yes, massive allegations involving flood control projects, billions of dollars spent, and investigations suggest numerous officials were involved in kickback schemes.
We're talking $9.6 billion spent on flood mitigation.
That's the figure mentioned. It's led to protests, even suggestions of a potential people power uprising, calling back to historical movements in the Philippines.
How is the military reacting? Calls for them to withdraw support from President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
The defense secretary and the military chief have publicly rejected those calls. They're emphasizing the military's professionalism, its commitment to the Constitution, staying out of politics. Military loyalty to the elected government appears to remain high. President Marcos has initiated an independent commission to investigate the corruption allegations.
What does this episode tell us?
The core insight is it highlights those ongoing struggles with governance and corruption that many democratic nations face, and critically, the delicate role the military plays in maintaining stability, especially when public trust and civilian leadership is shaken.
From massive corruption to something incredibly specific. A German farmer prosecuted over a small gift from Russia.
It sounds almost absurd, but yes.
Yeah.
A farmer named Rudolf Dennison is facing criminal prosecution,
For what?
allegedly violating sanctions by receiving a small Easter gift from a Russian friend. The value was tiny, under $32, but it contained items deemed illegal under the sanctions regime.
German customs are that strict.
Apparently, yes. Strictly enforcing the rules, confiscating personal items, gifts. If convicted, Dennison could face months or even years in prison, though he hopes the case will be dropped.
You can't even get a small present from a Russian friend without potentially facing jail time in Germany. That's intense.
It really shows the tangible personal impact of these broad geopolitical sanctions. While the intent is strategic pressure, Russia, the application can feel wildly disproportionate to individuals caught in the middle.
The core insight being how macro-level policy hits micro-level lives.
Exactly. The sometimes jarring disconnect between strategic goals and real-world personal consequences.
Let's turn to India now. Prime Minister Modi made some interesting comments about animal welfare, and there were also political protests related to cricket.
A mix of culture and politics. PM Modi apparently made some humorous remarks critiquing what he saw as double standards among animal lovers, contrasting concern for cows, which are culturally significant in India, with attitudes towards stray dogs, following a Supreme Court ruling about relocating strays, basically highlighting selective compassion.
Okay. And the cricket protests.
Yes, the Aam Aadmi Party, or AAP, organized widespread protests in Delhi. They were calling for a boycott of the upcoming Asia Cup cricket match between India and Pakistan.
Why boycott the match?
They were criticizing the Indian government for allowing the match to happen despite a recent terror attack in Pahalgam, in Jammu and Kashmir, which they blame on Pakistan-backed groups.
This raises an interesting question about how different issues get tangled together, right?
Absolutely. You have the Prime Minister using humor and cultural references to comment on societal values. Then you have a political party leveraging a national tragedy and intense geopolitical rivalry to protest a major sporting event.
The core insight is how diverse things, animal welfare, cricket, terrorism, national identity, all become interwoven with cultural narratives and political maneuvering in India.
It perfectly illustrates that complex tapestry.
Now, some truly tragic news from the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DR Congo. Devastating boat accidents.
Just horrific. In a single week, reports indicate at least 193 people died and many more are missing in 2 separate boat accidents.
Where do these happen?
In the northwestern Equator province, the first incident involved a large boat, a whale boat carrying almost 500 people. It caught fire near Melange village, then capsized. 146 people missing from that one. The fire even spread to homes on the riverbank.
Oh my goodness. And the second accident.
A motorized boat capsized where the Nisolo and Great Moringa rivers meet. At least 86 people died, mostly students returning from holidays.
Why are these accidents so frequent there?
It's attributed to a combination of factors. Chronic overloading of boats is a huge issue. Poor maintenance of often old wooden vessels, risky nighttime navigation without proper lights or aids, and fundamentally, limited road infrastructure in Congo's vast rainforest means rivers are essential transportation routes, but often dangerously underserved.
The core insight is just a stark, tragic reminder.
Of the severe risks faced by communities who rely on inadequate, unsafe transportation infrastructure. It highlights the urgent need for better safety regulations, investment in safer vessels, and improved navigation support where rivers are lifelines.
Another tragedy highlighting the human cost of disaster and its aftermath. The Air India crash. Families are speaking out.
Yes, families of the victims from that crash, which claimed 241 lives, are expressing deep frustration. They're accusing Indian authorities of silence and indifference.
What are their specific concerns?
Major issues with the handling of remains, reports of bodies being commingled, caskets mislabeled, and just a general lack of proper communication and response from the authorities.
Are they taking legal action?
Yes, an aviation lawyer, James Healy Pratt, is representing over 20 families. They're taking legal action against Air India and also Boeing, looking into the causes of the crash. The UK government acknowledged the family's distress and offered support, as many victims had UK ties, but formal identification rests with Indian authorities.
The core insight here feels painfully clear.
It highlights that profound human toll when large-scale disasters strike. And critically, the immense importance of transparent, compassionate, and accountable responses from those in charge. Failures compound the grief and shatter trust.
Back in the U.S., a security incident at the U.S. Naval Academy had a tragic outcome.
Yes, a situation involving a false report of an active shooter led to a lockdown and, tragically, gunfire.
What happened?
In the chaos and confusion stemming from the false report, a midshipman was shot. It appears to have been a case of mistaken identification between an officer responding and the student.
That's terrible. What questions does this raise?
Serious questions about security protocols, obviously, but also about the dangerous effects of misinformation in emergency situations, the critical need for clear, accurate communication when adrenaline is high. The Academy is reviewing everything, its security measures, its response strategies.
The core insight is just how devastatingly quickly misinformation can escalate.
Even in highly controlled, highly trained environments like a military academy, with tragic results.
A related incident, thankfully without injury, but still alarming. A student arrested with a gun at a Las Vegas high school.
Yes, at Samaritan Memorial High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. A firearm was found on a student during a routine inspection. The student was arrested.
It just raises immediate alarms about school safety.
Huge alarms. Student safety, how the student got the gun, the potential for violence in schools. It feeds into those broader national anxieties about school shootings, youth violence. It sparks those difficult discussions again about gun control, mental health support in schools.
The core insight is that this is a recurring nightmare, touching on deeply divisive issues with no easy answers.
Exactly. Underscoring the ongoing struggle to keep schools safe while tackling the complex root causes.
Now, a truly heartbreaking story we've tracked. The murder of Irina Zarudska, a Ukrainian refugee in North Carolina, has become a flashpoint for many debates.
A terrible incident. Irina Zarudska, just 23, was fatally stabbed on a light rail train in Charlotte. The alleged attacker, DeCarlos Brown Jr., reportedly has a long criminal history.
And bystanders didn't intervene.
Reports suggest they did not, which raises its own questions about public safety and bystander effect. But the focus has also been on the suspect. Critics are asking why Brown was free despite multiple prior arrests, raising concerns about the criminal justice system's handling of repeat violent offenders.
And the media coverage has also been scrutinized.
Heavily. Accusations of selective coverage, perceived biases, some outlets accused of downplaying the story. Conservative commentators argue it shows double standards in how crimes are reported depending on the race of the victim and perpetrator.
This raises a really important and difficult question about how these tragedies get framed.
It does. This incident has become a focal point for intensely divisive debates. Public safety, systemic problems in the justice system, the role of the media, narratives around race and crime.
The core insight seems to be how such events become mirrors, reflecting broader societal anxieties and deep divisions.
Exactly, highlighting the immense challenge of finding common ground or even shared understanding when discussing complex issues like justice, safety, race, and media responsibility in such a polarized America.
Okay, let's wrap up this section with sports, but connecting it back to the geopolitical context we discussed earlier, India versus Pakistan cricket.
a classic example of politics on the pitch. The upcoming Asia Cup match is set for Dubai, but it's happening amidst heightened political tensions after a conflict earlier this year.
And we mentioned the protests earlier.
Right, the AAP party in Delhi calling for a boycott because of that recent terror attack in Kashmir, blaming Pakistan. They criticized the Indian government for even allowing the match.
What's the sentiment among fans and commentators?
It's divided. One cricket writer, Kudi Blal, reflected the view of many Indians that playing feels inappropriate given the tensions. Others see it maybe as a missed opportunity for diplomacy or just a financial decision overriding hostilities. Another commentator, Sami ul Hassan, noted the players themselves might struggle to remain emotionally detached from the political backdrop.
How is the Indian team approaching it?
Their assistant coach, Ryan Tendoshate, stressed the need for professionalism. Players have to focus on the game, block out the external pressures.
The core insight here is just how deeply sports get tangled with national identity and geopolitics.
Absolutely. For some fans, it's a critical proxy battle for national pride. For others, it's a painful reminder of conflict, something that shouldn't be normalized or trivialized by entertainment. It perfectly shows that complex interplay. #tag catch outro.
And that, I think, wraps up another deep dive. Wow. We went from black holes and AI ministers all the way to the front lines of global conflicts, the ethics of organ transplants, and the very personal impact of sanctions and social divisions.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? Scientific advances, political shifts, societal pressures, they all ripple outwards.
Absolutely.
And our goal, as always, is to help you, our listener, try to synthesize all this diverse information, spot the patterns, understand that broader context, those underlying insights.
Critical thinking feels more essential than ever.
It really is, especially navigating this incredibly complex, often noisy information landscape we live in.
So what does this all mean for you? I guess it means staying curious, right?
Yeah.
Asking those tough questions, recognizing that every headline, every development has layers upon layers of implications. It's rarely simple.
And maybe reflecting on this. In a world where AI bots can hold government roles, where we're contemplating using animal organs to extend human life, where even total darkness is studied for its mental benefits, what does progress truly mean?
Yeah.
Is it just about the next technological leap, or does real progress depend more fundamentally on our ability to cultivate empathy, to uphold human dignity, to prioritize compassion, especially amidst such rapid, unprecedented change?
That is a powerful thought to leave folks with, something to definitely ponder.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay informed.
And we'll see you next time.
For enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.